Next, we'll talk about some different factors controlling bone growth. Okay, so the three things that we're going to look at for these factors affecting bone growth are things like diet. So you need stuff like calcium and phosphate in your diet to be able to build these bones. You need vitamins. So your diet has to be rich in vitamins. Specifically, vitamin D is important for the absorption of calcium in the small intestine. And hormones. So we'll talk about these hormones next. Is hormonal control of calcium. So whether bones are going to grow or not depends on, we'll see how these different hormones affect them. So we're going to look at two things. We're going to look at hormonal effect on calcium itself, so just blood calcium, and then we'll look at the hormonal effect of bone growth. Okay, so if we're going to do hormones for calcium, and this is blood calcium, we're going to look at, remember I said your mineral is either in the bone or in the blood, so this is my bone. Here's my blood vessel. Let's talk about these two different things. Okay, the two hormones that we have, one is called parathyroid hormone, secreted by your parathyroid glands. And your other one is calcitonin. Calcitonin is secreted by the thyroid gland. Calcitonin and parathyroid hormone. So what we want to ask is, what effect do these have on blood calcium? Blood calcium. So we want to see, what is calcium? What's going to happen to the amount of calcium in here, in the blood vessel? So with parathyroid hormone, this is going to increase blood calcium. We'll talk about the physiology in just a second. Calcitonin is going to decrease blood calcium. How can you remember this? How do you remember, man, I have so much stuff to remember. How can I remember which one increases or decreases calcium? Calcitonin tones down blood calcium. So you've heard people say, hey, lower your tone. So calcitonin is decreasing or toning down blood calcium. Parathyroid is increasing blood calcium. So let's see how these work. So if I want parathyroid hormone to increase blood calcium, we said that our minerals, so calcium and phosphate, right now we're looking specifically at calcium. We said, okay, they're either in the bone or in the blood. If I know that parathyroid hormone increases blood calcium, then that means I'm going to get an increase in calcium levels over here, which means I need to decrease my levels of calcium in the blood. The ways that we can do this, we can either affect osteoblasts or osteoclasts. I'll tell you that both of these hormones are affecting osteoclasts, so let's just get rid of osteoblasts. So the only thing you're considered with these calcium hormones are osteoclasts. That's what we're talking about with them. So what you want to say is it going to increase or decrease? Is it going to activate or inhibit the activity of osteoclasts? So if I want blood calcium to increase, I want the amount of calcium in my bloodstream to increase, that means I need to go from the bone to the blood. So how do I get this from this calcium, from this hydroxyapatite, how do I go from here to this calcium ion? Well, if we went back and we looked at osteoclasts, when they get activated, secrete hydrochloric acid, which causes this conversion from our insoluble salt to our soluble ion. So look at this one more time. Activation of osteoclasts releases hydrochloric acid, turns our insoluble salt into our ions. So let's go back here. We need to ask ourselves, are we activating or inhibiting osteoclasts to increase blood calcium? Well, osteoclasts, if we activate them, this is supposed to be an arrow. My stylus isn't great. I just got this thing too. So if we activate our osteoclasts, then we're getting more hydrochloric acid, which means we'll be going from this insoluble calcium to this soluble calcium ion. So parathyroid hormone is going to cause the increase of activity of osteoclasts. Let's switch it up. Now I want calcitonin. Calcitonin is going to tone down blood calcium. So let's do a decrease in calcium here. And I want to increase calcium in the bone then. How do I do this? Remember, osteoblasts and osteoclasts are working simultaneously to either build bone or break bone down. So if my osteoblasts are working all the time, then I'm constantly getting these bones to grow. But we were talking about osteoclasts. So, if I want to affect calcium without affecting osteoblasts, what am I doing? If I decrease or I inhibit these osteoclasts, then I'm not getting this calcium going back in the bloodstream, so that's one way. So my calcium's staying in the bone, which is what we want, because we want to decrease blood calcium. And then if my osteoblasts are working, then they're going to be taking this calcium from the bloodstream and putting it into that matrix that it's secreting to become hydroxyapatite. So by inhibiting these osteoclasts, you're getting more calcium in your bone versus your blood. Okay. Recap, calcitonin tones down blood calcium. Parathyroid hormone increases blood calcium, and they both do this by affecting osteoclasts. Calcitonin is more prevalent in children than adults, and let's think about that. If you a kid has to build strong bones, right? So doesn't it make sense that we want less calcium in the blood and more calcium in the bones? If we want more calcium in the bones, we're going to be using this calcitonin. So calcitonin is important for kids and infants. Okay, there's two hormones to talk about. We want to do growth hormone. So these are hormones for blood calcium. Now we're going to look at hormones for bone growth. So the first hormone that we'll talk about is growth hormone. If you had to guess the effect of growth hormone on bone growth, would you say it increases or decreases? Growth hormone is going to increase bone growth, and this is secreted by the pituitary gland of the brain. We'll talk about that at the beginning of next semester with the endocrine system. The other one is testosterone or estrogen. So testosterone and estrogen, the effect of these two hormones, these cause the conversion of that hyaline cartilage template of the epiphyseal plate to turn into bone. So if we go back, and we looked at these epiphyseal plates. So when I get some testosterone coming in here, I'll do a different color. When I get testosterone coming in during puberty, it's going to cause the shrinkage of this plate. So this plate's going to eventually just go down to what we call an epiphyseal line. So adult bones, they look like this. They have this medullary cavity here and the compact and spongy bone, but instead of these plates like that, it's just going to have an epiphyseal line. So these plates close. When you hear about your growth plates closing, that's what these are. So testosterone and estrogen are going to have this effect. Going from this hyaline cartilage template to this bone, so it closes the growth plates, the epiphyseal plates. You'll see women during their menopause, you'll see they have these decreased levels of estrogen. Estrogen is important for putting calcium into the bone too, so women will get these porous bones. We call it like osteoporosis as they get older.